will be waived to also voted to end affirmative action on college campuses and to rein in federal regulators. But for Donald Trump and the choice, that hasn't been enough. Action, please. We're all fellow workers here. So we're out here because we're looking. We're looking for, but it's not. Oh, yeah. Oh, I knew I was going to be in astronomy at 9 years old. I actually had a missing timing. I lost the whole day. And it put me in a hospital. And I thought, boy, the universe is simply benefits there. I have to keep looking up. We are here in the California desert on our way to contact with that the biggest status of UFOs in the world. Here, we're light years, constant flexing that we are alone in the universe. Instead, we can share stories of encounters. So it's like slide, dusty through very all Nordic looking beings and had a couple of little foot sprays on each side and things they just can't explain. They see orbs dancing in the sky like they're skipping across water. That's not really true. But they still wondering things. Talking about what the Trump administration is going to tell the world about UFOs. These are new things we're on the top of a major disclosure event. Disclosure event, right? Brought about by the disclosure president is going to be Donald Trump. And reason for that is he is the president who got the last year when the news was set. The first head of state who confirms that we are not alone gets one of the greatest political legacies of all time. Do you think he's the final president with Mike Ford having an incredible legacy like that? I think so. Trump didn't make this massive announcement in his first term. What gives you confidence that he'll do it this time around? Second time around, right? This time not with a lot of carryovers or anywhere to trying to keep them in the guardrails and crap. Now this is maybe the most important thing I can tell you right now. Anna Polina, who said the UAP is the most bipartisan investigation in the history of the United States. As part of Trump's uses for greater transparency from Penny to Epstein to UFOs, he created a task force chaired by Representative Luna and the declassification of federal secrets. It's a people hear from that to testify, and there's something now that people are taking here. You're gonna bring this in. Yeah, there's some brain in our society that this is not something to do. I think it's surgery. To talk about had all about that and say, sure, I just I don't feel have evidence that the new administration is actually going to be good on that. And then you hear where it comes from the news. You're this final fund is going on. You see a mistake. Take a look at it. It's good. If you told someone this 20 years ago, I think they would have thank you. That's all. This you see people breaking up. Really, I don't because I don't know. As we join the world of the living, is a and we get less into a new industry where we're now at a standard business, right? And then yeah, nice to work really do attention on Hollywood. And it surprised me most about moving to Columbus, Ohio, how quickly we feel like home. Yeah. The thing I really miss is my family and the stuff and now my neighbors. So the students, it's very important for them. Not of the two friends, so two friends. Yeah, well, it's really positive news, isn't it? You're getting, really incredible students. Like I say, getting into these top US schools is incredibly difficult. What are your colleagues in America saying about all of this behind closed doors? Obviously, they can't speak too publicly about the Trump administration, but how frustrating has it been for them to lose these brilliant students? It's very frustrating because education is not only excellent, it's something we share really great. It's how very partners, you have a lot of partnerships, about 250 great universities abroad and in the US. And this is a huge problem, not only financial, but it's research, it's connections, it's openness, it is also some a strong and core values about diversity, equity, and this has a lot of implication also among the accreditation. So it's completely challenging everything, and we face that we are connected to them, and I hope it's part of the temporary solution for them, and the situation will
improve. But it's very important that students internationally to stay connected, to share their culture and to get back um, with this experience. So yeah, it's strange. It's a strange time now. He's arguably the best boxer in a generation. For parents, in one of the biggest fights of his life. But family and country, inescapable. So Ukraine's, well, it sounds easy. Tell me this, what is it?
It's pride and Ukraine on Europe.
The military flag filled with inspirational messages, with one he's keen to point out.
Inside Mama, the Ukrainian soldiers.
That's from Alexander Matsievsky's mother, a Ukrainian soldier whose defiance, moments before he was executed by Russian soldiers, became legend.
This man says like this, Russian, what do you want to say? This guy takes cigarette, Slava Ukraine. This guy, it's a bad, yo.
We're 2,700 kilometers from Kiev, training camp in southern Spain, that Usyk has made his only way from home. But with Ukrainian symbols everywhere, the war is very much in front of him. And though he says he tries not to read the news, he's well aware of Ukraine's daring drone strikes on Russian air bases.
I would like to express my deep gratitude to Vasil Vasilyevich. Boss, great job.
A shout out to the head of Ukraine's security services, one of the many military figures Usyk crossed paths with while serving his country. He joined the Territorial Defense Forces when Russia launched its full-scale invasion in 2022 and has visited the front lines several times since. His success in the ring has seen him become a source of inspiration, but also of some respite for those at the front.
What are your friends on the front line saying to you? What are those telling you in terms of the mood, how they are doing?
They're more interested in what I'm doing. And I ask them questions, they say, wait, tell us about yourself. What's going on with you? We try not to talk about the scary things they do to defend our country. What's happening there, what kind of shelling is happening, how they're being attacked, how they're heroically defending our country.
Out of sight, out of mind? Well, not quite for most Ukrainians, and neither for his sons may be here within arm's reach, safe. But some of his families remain at home.
The girls, my two daughters, and my wife, they are in peace. And it's a little difficult to balance.
3.5 years after Russian troops marched on Kyiv, Usyk is still unbeaten from his professional career.
It's difficult, but I can switch off to do my job so that I can help my country more later on.
The next challenge lies a heavyweight fight against Sutton's Daniel Dubois, a moment to send a message around the world. Amanda Davis, CNN, Nigeria, Spain. You know, the upcoming season of Love Island USA.
Safe to say this season's looking pretty good.
Basically told me Fridays. Homework, forums, shop over to the training session, trade service, be ready. And then, depending on the day, it's like concentrate. I think wanting to trade and play 3 for shop and I found the percent of shop. I have that I want. So
This is so funny because I hate commitment.
There's no wrong way to start to singing this. Unless, of course, you're doing the pool. The Outer Bridge found herself in a bit of a jam when she was called out for making her sick daughter a classic peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Got it. Not even a single point. That day I had to call off work. I had to toss her out of food because she was vomiting.
She had a 9 a.m. court appearance for a misdemeanor charge in the 36th District Court with the Honorable Judge Sean Perkins presiding.
I don't want to probably saying it, but they like, God, be dead, man. He got on the road.
First step in a recipe for disaster.
I got multiple circles that I tried to get the team members, and they had told me we're supposed to be there right now. So when he had me to hold it for 2 hours, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of forgot. He was even on the phone until I heard, "Miss Ivory, Miss Ivory." I definitely was wrong. I could have changed dressed better and more prepared. And I don't want the judge to think that I'm laughing at the situation at home because I'm not. I took that very seriously. I do it genuinely, very seriously. I apologize to the judge.
Outerbridge says she holds herself accountable for her actions and she wants to turn this situation into something positive.
So I know how to present myself. But that day, you know, it's hard for moms out here. I'm not gonna lie. I took Miss Ivory, are you wearing a robe? And I turned that into a transition of what you would wear to court. And I showed different outfits you could wear to court, how you can present yourself, and how you cannot be caught laughing in a robe in the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Okay? You don't want to do that. That's not a good idea.
Police in Northern Ireland are investigating major arrests as what they call racially motivated. Officials say hundreds of masked rioters for 2 consecutive nights set fire to homes and cars and attacked police in the town of Ballymena. The chaos follows a protest over an alleged sexual assault committed by 2 teenage boys. CNN's Nick Robertson has covered Northern Ireland extensively and has filed his report.
For a second night, anti-immigration rioters faced off with police in the small Northern Ireland town of Ballymena. Dozens of mostly young men threw hexagons and rushed at the police. Police responded with water cannons and battle rounds, ramming their armored vehicles through burning barricades. 17 officers were injured, 2 more in previous nights.
This violence was clearly racially motivated and targeted at our minority ethnic community and the police. It was racist, agreed, and simply.
The violence also spreading to other towns, including the regional capital, Belfast. This Belfast lawmakers' own district was impacted by racist violence just a few months ago.
I am really worried about the potential for this unrest to spread. It is wanton aggression, violence, destruction of property and intimidation of people.
Ballymena's tiny handful of migrants became the target Monday. Masked gangs smashing windows, kicking in doors. At least one family burnt out of their home, their vehicle torched, others in shock. What had begun as a peaceful protest for a young woman who said she'd been sexually assaulted turned violent following the charging of 2 teenage boys. A Romanian interpreter, the BBC reported, some families putting flags on their doors, hoping to keep attackers away.
We've seen the horrific sight of ethnic minorities putting flags and exclamations on their door saying that they might be a healthcare worker or that they work in a local factory and effectively, pleading mercy.
Police now calling for reinforcements from mainland UK.
As part of my forward planning, I have now activated the request for mutual aid resources from policing colleagues in Great Britain
Fueling concerns the riot will continue the so-called marching season, beginning a hangover from the region's bloody sectarian past, and is often the most violent month of the year. Nick Robertson, CNN, in London.
The unrest in LA's predictable outcome of these aggressive tactics. What's it meant to distraction? I can't remember. What were we even talking about?
Elon Musk is now accusing Trump of being in the Epstein files.
All right. That's what we were talking about. It is ridiculous. I mean, you can't just make wild accusations like that just because Trump and Epstein hung out once or twice, or Trump was in the White House, or Epstein called Trump his closest friend, or they went to parties and whispered, I can only assume biblical passages in each other's ear.
Does he know that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files? Does he have access to the Epstein? I don't know, but I'm just staying out of between people on chain that good. There's a difference. I know my number.
Not your lane. Really, literally in charge of the Epstein. He's the guy in charge of law enforcement domestically. Conspiracy crimes cover up.
Very strong heavyweights. Two big dogs living in close quarters. Two young men that are fighting. Two alpha males duking it out.
In the same fight. You're seeing this. It's actually this.
Today, we're excited to announce our broadest design update ever. And it starts with an entirely new expressive material we call liquid glass. With the optical qualities of glass and a fluidity that only Apple can achieve, it transforms depending on your content or even your context and brings more clarity to navigation and control. Unknown senders appear in a dedicated area, and you can decide if you want to mark the number as known, ask for more information, or delete. Until you accept, messages from unknown senders will remain silent and won't appear as notifications. With Folder Assist, the phone app can keep your spot in line while you wait for a live agent. Next time you're stuck on hold, whether it's because you're changing your flight or dealing with utility bills, the phone app automatically detects hold music and asks if you want it to wait for you.
With Apple Intelligence, live translation can translate conversations on the fly. It's integrated into messages, FaceTime, and phone. For instance, in messages, live translation can automatically translate text for you. When you're catching up on FaceTime, you can follow along with translated live captions.
Visual Intelligence makes it faster to do more content in your iPhone screen. And it works automatically with any app. Say I open a social media app and I see this great jacket. I want to know where I can get something like this. I can find out with Visual Intelligence, and I can access it with a familiar gesture by pressing the same buttons I use to take a screenshot. Now at the top, I have screenshot controls like markup and share. At the bottom, I have visual intelligence tools like this image search button in the bottom right. I can tap here to find similar images on Google or other apps I use frequently. This is a can of Valspar, $29.98. It's also inspiration to find a little less inspirations. Valspar, affordable, durable, available at list.
What are the enemies, guys?
No kidding. You're there. It's like the feeling you say easy is find out from March. It's been China and something else that helped him navigate.
What you make it a demo?
There's a hill of the last there. It was our
Ahmed Al-Aziz is an immigration reporter for the New York Times. He recently accompanied ICE agents in a raid in Miami. Ahmed, welcome to the show. We have seen a large exclusion to our correspondent there. We are seeing, protests and post as these immigration raids continues. We spoke about, factories in Nebraska, farms in LA. You've seen this ramped up enforcement. Just speak to what you're seeing in this ICE operation in Miami. So talk us through that.
Yeah, I think what we saw is, factors of what's happening across the country where it is no longer just ICE that is conducting the deportation operations on their own, but there are resources from across the federal government, including the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, other entities that generally have nothing to do with immigration, or being called on by to reduce the number of people that they can send into American communities and find people they want to arrest, not really they can.
And that sounds a pretty significant large operation. Resources, I'm guessing, large as well. But are the differentiations between criminals and non-criminals? Just talk us through that. And particularly what you saw when you went. What did you see?
Well, one of the things that I saw when I was there was, again, the other agencies helping out, beefed up enforcement from different, the extensive number of officers who are on the ground finding people. As well, we came across a case in which there was an individual who was targeted by ICE for arrest, and this individual was near their brother. The brother was going to take him to work, and because the brother was around the target, ICE was running his information and ultimately decided to deport him. Ultimately decided to arrest him. And this is something called collateral arrest, something that the agency is using more of during this administration, where they'll have a certain target, an individual they're going after, but anybody around them who is undocumented also becomes fair game. And I think this speaks to the fact that for a lot of people, and for this administration, for ICE, the idea of differentiating between a criminal and a non-criminal is difficult because in their mind, individuals have committed crimes by crossing into the country illegally, and other factors of doing this essentially, so they believe that, it's important to not necessarily differentiate, specifically.
And Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, I know this is something you've addressed as well in New York Times, said in May that ICE would set a goal of, I think, a minimum of 3,000 arrests a day after. From your understanding, are they meeting that? Is that an official quota? And what kind of pressure does that put on ICE?
Yeah, depending on who you talk to, data, goals, the way it's been described is good, but I will say that this idea of 3,000 arrests and trying to get to that every single day is something I have formulated for every agency. And ultimately, at this point, we have not hit 3,000. There were some moments last week where they were arresting more than 2,000 people, but those numbers ultimately dropped off, and we haven't gotten anywhere near 3,000 arrests a day. But I think as far as Hartford goes, I think, any time there is an administration that wants more work, more arrests, this means that officers and agents will be working more and will be spending more energy on trying to, nature things, numbers that are being expected. And I'm able to do things now that I wouldn't have been able to do because the previous president and presidency would say better. Let's do.
But in interview, the New York Post chapter 1, President Donald Trump explained himself as a country his second term differently.
Well, as an example, I can be stronger on an attack on Los Angeles. Yes, okay. I think bringing in the National Guard 4 years ago or 8 years ago would have been more difficult.
Trump also said he told Governor Gavin Newsom he planned to deploy National Guard troops
before activating them in California.
I mean, the phone call was to deploy the troops. It was late at night. I said, you know, your city's burning away. Your state is in bad trouble. You gotta get to the level, why did I call it?
When asked if he went in using, Trump said,
No, he's not doing a good job. You know, but he asked what does that mean? He's not doing a good job. It's really misleading, I guess. You know, it's almost like a dissipation of resources.
Like the original 2010 animated version, How to Train Your Dragon tells the story of an unlikely bond between a Viking boy and a dragon. And like the original, it's written and directed by G. Deblois, who believes this version will add new dimensions to the story. With the franchise, and they might even have families of their own, but certainly presenting it in this new medium with more bells and whistles and a little more depth to mythology, it does open it up to a whole new audience. Hopefully it's a nostalgic house for those people who love the animated movies, and also it's safe to say to those who may have missed it. A new young cast takes over roles from the voice actors of the animated shows, but one original is back. Gerard Butler returns as Stoic the Bats.
girls that she's turned animated movie, because to see this person who is an embodiment of the animated movie was absolutely surreal. It's amazing.
Butler found a live-action version a much bigger challenge. Let's face it, running around in a 100-pound Viking costume is exhausting work. Just think about it again. If you're wearing that 10 for the day, you're fighting, running upstairs, downstairs, and standing around the night. But it definitely really helped me feel and embody that amazing Viking story. In Hollywood, I'm Douglas Taft. Warner Brothers Discovery's shares have closed lower. This after the company announced plans to split next year. The parent company of this network, CNN, will divide into two publicly traded entities, streaming and studios, and global networks. CNN Brian Stelter is with me now. And Brian, it strikes me that this reverses much of the work that was done in the previous merger when the previous companies, Discovery and the parent company of CNN, joined up. Is that the end result of this?
That is true, but I guess everything in life, Jim, is a rebundling and unbundling. You know, everything in life ultimately gets combined and then taken back apart again. That's what's happening at CNN's parent company now, as CEO David Zaslav implements this split. It is a reversal from what the company did 4 years ago. Zaslav of Discovery taking over the old Time Warner assets. WBD, as we know it today, has been around for 3 years, but its stock has languished. This time 3 years ago, the shares were around $20, now about $10 a share. So that value has been cut in half, and that really tells the story about why this change is happening. There's one other dollar figure, Jim, that tells the story. $1,000. Shares of Netflix have been over $1,000 in recent weeks. WBD has been under $10 a share. It's a tale of two companies. Every other media company wants to be Netflix, wants to be the streaming powerhouse. And by breaking up WBD into two halves, you're going to have a streaming studio half, and then you're going to have a linear cable network half. The idea here is that the streaming side, which is growing, gaining subscribers, and now becoming profitable, could, in theory, be valued more extensively by Wall Street. But as you said, I think investors are getting more persuading because WBD did properly open and then slid today, closing down more than 3%.
So tell me about this other company that's going to house I guess the older line assets, right? The cable channels such as CNN, TNT Sports, etc. What is the future? What do analysts believe the future is of that entity?
This is always why it's so complicated talking about the media business in these years, because the streaming side, while very expensive and growing and where all the excitement is, it's actually not the profitable side. You know, it has been a struggle for companies like Disney and WBD to make a profit on streaming. The area where the profit exists are in those old-fashioned cable channels that you just named. They still have steady and strong profits, even though there's a lot of pressure from cord cutting. So the positive take for the second company, the linear TV company that CNN would be a part of, is that these companies do have a runway because they have profits that they can bank on for a number of years to come. They also have, of course, international audiences, and that is incredibly valuable in this day and age. So those are the two advantages for that linear TV company. The great unknown here is whether CNN, Discovery, TNT, et cetera, will ultimately be bought up by someone else, or if this new company will be in a trial. Clearly, we are not at the end of this round of media consolidation, even though today's news is kind of the opposite. It's a breakup. It's part of a wider trend for consolidation. And this is, I guess, maybe the fifth inning, maybe the sixth, but definitely not the ninth, Jim.
Como sabes, Antonio Senegal, I'm a player on my United, I'm a playmaker.
Young in the country to Europe, and you're not 18 yet, it's tough to find something. Eventually, I got a bit discharged. So with my agent, we put together a plan to get to Belgium. I told them, I'm not here for trial. I started playing professionally in Belgium, but it didn't go so well. There was staff downgrade, the coach resigned, and I ended up with a new staff who didn't know anyone. That's how I ended up in the French third division. Sometimes when you don't know where to go, you need to take a step back to new periods.
Jamal says we unlocks a new talent that's coming to the United States.
Why Portugal? Why LA? And why Canada? Because since I was a child, I always had dreamed of coming to the United States. I didn't know how or what for, but since I was a footballer, I figured it might be through the sun that it would happen. So why not come to the US and compete then?
Jamal joined Atlanta United in 2023. The franchise that won their first MLS title after only 2 seasons in the league. He says he immediately clicked with the team.
The results. I'd say being at the stadium is extraordinary. When you walk in, see the fans, and you're about to step onto the pitch to do your job, it's unforgettable. The atmosphere in the stadium is just wonderful. I had never experienced that before. Thanks for Atlanta and the fans. I feel like I have been reborn in the football game.
That contagious atmosphere boosted Jamal's confidence against Toronto FC in 2023. At this year's home opener, Jamal Walker achieved a iconic goal, one that doesn't happen often in football.
In that moment when the goalkeeper played the goal after our last performance, he didn't see me standing behind him. I moved towards him, and when he released the goal, I rushed him and picked the goal out of the goal. He was surprised and followed me, but I was able to turn and keep him to the empty net, showing a great goal. As I went straight to celebrate the goal, I was proud of it. Then I saw my Senegalese flag in the stand. That gave me a really fantastic pride. The ran and took the flag to celebrate. Everyone told me to let go of the couldn't staying. But it was a fantastic moment. The atmosphere in the stadium, the sounds, all of it. I was in my bubble, instead of noise, and I'm just so happy about that goal and that news.
You didn't get on when I died.
It's like the skill and you play TV and hanging out something and figuring yourself the more you shine and I can get up to another day.
Now what's going to happen? Let's take the university and move it down. You know, so we took it back to freedom. Yes, the knowledge now right. Real AI putting you in the person.
My name is Anne. I used to smoke. I was never sure that I would not smoke and marry or have the same style that I met someone and my future completely changed. My tip is building a healthy future for you and your family starts with you smoking in the house.
You confirm. It's a full house. It's sport now. It's 3 and you're
You forget to ask when you bring up the back. Just like A small group of protesters tried to stop federal agents from leaving a new production plant at their immigration raid in Wilmington. Video taken by a Flatwater Free Transporter shows buses transporting immigrants and protesters throwing rocks at cars. The Department of Homeland Security said the agents detained more than 70 undocumented migrants, the largest immigration action in Nebraska under the Trump administration. The president of Glen Valley Phoenix, the company that was raided, said they had followed the law and used the E-Verify system, a federal database, to check the immigration status of employees. In the case ICE agents that he said they stated that the E-Verify system, quote, is broken. CNN has reached out to Glen Valley Phoenix for a statement.
Parliament member Alexi Gonzalez, your life in the death of Robin Ellison to say, Alexi, great to have you on the show. We are seeing, I think it's fair to say, both the pace and the intensities of these attacks by Russia increasing. Give us a sense, first of all, not just of the damage, but also the terror that must have been felt just in the last 24 hours, we say.
Yes. He's first to say the teacher this, the capital cities here and Sarah Odessa, the United States. And unfortunately, those become victims. There were hundreds of drones attacking from all directions. And what is so hopeful is that Russia, that this time Russia, there's a huge maternity hall. It's a very important place for me because it's walking my side home for their game, the maternity hall. And near the station of the fusion. So it's absolutely civilian infrastructure, care infrastructure, which was attacked by Russians and damaged. The second thing, which is also very barbaric, is the first attack the steam units that steam factory, right? You can say Ukrainian employees. Because that's where the first people who had the cinema started in Ukraine 100 years ago. So it's here, then Sophia Cathedral, which is more than 50 years old, which is the UNESCO heritage of the Russian here institutions, and also very important cultural institutions for Ukraine and for Ukrainian people.
And not last night, as I heard from some in Odessa, but not collective. President Putin had told, if you remember, in that hearing, President Trump, that he would retaliate. Do you believe that Russia's response to Ukraine's drone attack, of course, in spite of that, as it was known, do you believe this is joking it's over, or do you think there's more to come?
First of all, what retaliation? Russia did this. That's Ukraine. 3 years ago, and even 10 years ago, and so it's something they look for Russia is the techniques we do. Before we see the doesn't matter. Secondly, seeing the present sounds very engaging in the conversation itself. Seeing the present comes to change the tactics and speed of the issues we use people. There's even a defense on the one is candidate strength, candidate force. And when Trump is saying, President Trump is saying, Russia will attack, Ukraine can use this. Russia doesn't want to use the leaders to protect the even the only thing the United States can say the potential attack against maternity, against cohabiting, here more severe and serious sanctions against them. Happening now, hopefully President Trump will soon arrive on the red carpet, although to be honest, everything at the Kennedy Center has a red carpet, for an opening night fundraiser and performance of Les Mis at the Kennedy Center. Les Mis, of course, the musical based on the Victor Hugo novel about class and poverty and justice, people being wrongly in prison and on and on. We're at the center of Washington DC, which comes being himself the chairman of the board of this year. So we're dreaming his dreams from the first time to cement his cultural influence. But there could be some empty chairs and empty tables tonight as his attendance is collecting boycotts from the cast and Kennedy Center subscribers. Since Kevin Collins and David Challion are here, they are masters of the house. I'm waiting for you to sing, David. This is the first time the Conference can see a performance at the Kennedy Center since he cleared out the leadership there and replaced them with his loyalists. What does this night mean to him? Why is this so important to him? By the way, President and First Lady Melania Trump leaving the White House on their way to the Kennedy Center, master of the house, as it were, master of the White House.
This is something we never do this for Trump. He never attended a show or performance at the Kennedy Center. He didn't have a lot of interest in kind of, Washington's social life then. And so to see even just this moment now, with these peaceful words.
This was an we have policy presumably about Los Angeles, and he said to me, we'll have to see.
The question was, reporters are kind of distance from Trump because of the construction that they're doing ahead of the military parade.
I'm told there was a question about the Middle East. We covered earlier in the show about the evacuations of some U.S. embassies in Iraq and Bahrain and Kuwait.
It's the president there. But what this is, what they're going to, so the culmination of taking over the Kennedy Center, appointing himself as chairman, removing the board members, and replacing them with his own allies and friends and donors. And so spending up to $2 million, I believe, to go and attend his first performance tonight. And so this is something we didn't see before. What's interesting is, remember when Vice President J.D. Vance went with the second lady, they're already there on the carpet. But when they went earlier this year in March, they were booed by the audience. And so obviously people will be watching closely to see what the president says when he gets there. But really, this is something that we didn't see all in this first term. And it's just this culmination of his takeover this time.
The second lady, Mrs. Vance, is one of the new board members of the Kennedy Center, as is Susie Wild, as is Pam Bondi, the attorney general.
Yes, and we could note that 10 to 12 of the cast members of them were told had planned to sit out tonight's show in protest. Good thing they have understudies, I guess. Other performance ladies in the year and staff altogether, including the amazing Carol Hamilton. Does Trump even, David, have any feelings about this revulsion to his taking over the Kennedy Center by so many people in the artistic community?
I think he welcomes this as a cultural battle to fight. This, I think, he made clear when he first showed up to the Kennedy Center and installed Victor Nell as the head there, that this was part of the effort to end wokeism and get rid of woke. That was sort of how this whole decision was framed. And so I think when he gets blowback from some artistic corners or other progressive about who's taking over the center and now showing up for this performance, I think he sort of welcomes them back. I think it feeds right into the cultural battles.
Just a thing is such an amazing film. And I took my daughter to see it last time. It's just incredible. Caitlin, thank you for 1 second. Elon Musk walked back his tirade against President Trump in a late night post on social media. He wrote, I regret some of my posts about President Trump last week. They went too far. Presumably, he didn't go into detail, but presumably he's talking about suggesting that Donald Trump is on the list of notorious pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, although he didn't specify that. I think that probably went a little too far. Yeah, I mean, also, we don't have any evidence that it's true. I mean, you have some new reporting today about what's going on behind the scenes.
That was the case because he deleted several of his posts on LinkedIn.
Well, then nobody will ever know that they ever existed.
Yeah. It's been support what's happening in Los Angeles and the efforts by the Trump administration. You could see that kind of, it's massive social media platform. What we've now learned and confirmed from the New York Times is that Elon Musk called President Trump on Monday night. I was told by White House that it was a very brief call during the search for a few moments. But then you saw Trump today was commenting on the post from overnight, saying he thought it was a very nice thing for Elon Musk to do. It doesn't seem that things have been totally repaired between them. I mean, he can only, go so far with these accusing them of being in Epstein files, and that's why they're blocking the release of them.
Someone a pedophile to be really investigation.
And when you talk to them, who kind of broke their peace between them, as they've been doing on Friday before he had posted the pedophile thing, I don't think it's something else. That was something they were trying to do, but maybe that was a bridge too far. I will say, in terms of, you know, the reviews of Elon Musk's contracts with the federal government, Caroline downplayed that. They said it's a big top priority for them. The Tesla that comes off was released in the White House today, but this is still under concern when they sold it or got rid of it. But they no longer have it on the White House campus as they did for 60 hours.
David, I want to ask you because Senator Rand Paul, Republican of Kentucky, who is not been in the program, as it were, when it comes to President Trump's big, beautiful bill. He says it adds to the deficit. He's also critical of the military parade taking place this Saturday, and saying that it's the kind of thing you see in North Korea and in America. Apparently, he was upset that there's been some blowback from the White House.
Well, apparently we was talking about not allowing other events, and went on quite a lengthy, minor information told me about what he thought as pennies for being disinvited, just in the last few hours, apparently we got word that he was disinvited from the White House's congressional picnic. You know, he said, these are the type of things I've been for 10 years here, go to New York. He had his grandson, young grandson, enrolling with him. And he said, now my grandson